What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with a very special one this time. And it's actually special in two regards. One, this is another release that a friend of the channel, in this case Doug, sent me. Indeed, Doug sent me a lot of things, still just working my way to get to all of them, including, stuff from some punk labels that I followed, some synth pop. We already listened to Gary Newman's Cars, which he sent me on a little vinyl. And indeed, speaking of little vinyl, we're going to listen to a record I used to have, but when I was finishing grad school and money was really tight, and I was eventually forced to sell some of my collections just so I could, stay afloat for the few months while I was trying to figure out, what job I was going to get and so on. I ended up selling this record, and this record, it's called Carl Sagan, A Glorious Dawn. This is composed and arranged by John Boswell, and it says featuring Stephen Hawking. So, shout out to both the late Carl Sagan and the late Stephen Hawking. And yeah, this uses their vocal clips and samples within a composition that is quite beautiful and inspiring and cosmic. It feels very much of the piece, which is to say it feels like an extension of Carl Sagan's ideas and popularization of astronomy, as well as the contributions of the genius Stephen Hawking. Bottom line, it's a really cool tune. I've heard actually a couple remixes of this, like a Psytrance remix and so on, but they weren't on vinyl. Number one, I'm really happy to have this vinyl again, because it was one that I ended up selling like several years back. So big shout out to Doug for sending it over. It's just a really cool tune that makes me sort of nostalgic and teary-eyed. I'm a big fan of Carl Sagan. I mentioned this on many occasions, and if anyone follows my DJ mixes, you'll know I sample him in like a crazy percentage of my mixes. Like my ambient excursions, I would say it's like 75% of the ambient excursion mixes where I sample him. So this is always going to be a tune I enjoyed. So once again, shout out to John Boswell? Yeah, John Boswell for this composition. Admittedly, I don't know much beyond this by John Boswell. I would assume maybe he's a score composer, or at least modern down-tempo, ambient, that type of music. But it's just a really cool tune, so let's get it. And this is one of those records where you actually have to use the centerpiece for the spindle. This is, as I said, Carl Sagan featuring Stephen Hawking, A Glorious Dawn, written or produced and arranged by John Boswell. Would you stop?
I'm not very good at singing songs, but here's a try. If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. Space is filled with a network of wormholes. You might emerge somewhere else in space. Some went out in time. The sky calls to us. If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture to the stars. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise. A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way cosmos is full beyond measure. Elegant truths of exquisite interrelationships of the awesome machinery of nature. I believe our future depends powerfully on how well we understand this cosmos, in which we float like a float of dust in the morning sky.
But the brain does much more than just recollect. It intercompares, it synthesizes, analyzes, it generates abstractions.
The simplest thought, the concept of the number one, has an elaborate logical underpinning. The brain has its own
Ask
language,
Russell and
testing
Whitehead
the
about
structure
that.
and consistency of the world. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise. A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. The sky calls to us. If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture to the stars.
universe didn't stretch out forever, or was there a limit? From the Big Bang to black holes, from dark matter to a possible big crunch, our image of the universe today is full of strange sounding ideas.
How lucky we are to live in this time, the first moment in human history when we are, in fact, visiting other worlds. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise, a morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise, a morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. The surface of the Earth is the shore of the cosmic ocean. Recently, we've waded a little way up, and the water seems inviting.
It's just beautiful. Again, shout out to John Boswell, man. It's just unbelievable. If you know the Cosmos series, you know, there's bits taken from several different episodes there. And in particular, that line, "The sky calls to us," it's one of my favorite sequences in one of my favorite episodes of the show. So that line always gets me. But yeah, it's just amazing. Again, shout out to Doug. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sending this and having this again. Yeah, I gotta try to work this into one of my ambient mixes. It feels like, you know, such a natural thing, but, you know, I concentrate on, you know, finding different artists and so on for my Sabian sets, that it never actually occurred to me, oh, well, yeah, I could use this track, which already has a sample from Sagan in it, so might see that at some point. Nevertheless, again, big shout out to John Boswell, big shout out to Doug, I really do appreciate it. Big shout out to Carl Sagan. Again, there are few people in human history who I find as inspiring and as great a model for, you know, I'm not the first person to say this, but like, if we were to encounter an alien species and we had to send a diplomat, you know, someone who could best represent us and so on, I think Carl Sagan would have been a great choice. So, yeah, I feel like that's one of the highest compliments you can give to a human. So RIP to him, RIP to Stephen Hawking. Yeah, let me know what you think of this one. And one last time, big shout out to Doug. I massively appreciate it. Let me know what you think. I will see you next time. Peace.